I was reading this about a month or so ago on Nvidia. Essentially says using the whole system, Nvidia market cap would be just a mere $22 trillion. Jensen stood up and said, who is that man? Right? And now he's saying that the big picture, from a big picture point of view, the tech sector has never looked better. So I'm going to bring in now John Talbot, sector specialist at UBS Holt. First of all, the phone had to be ringing off the hook with this one, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a headline to say the least. But, I think, Charles, bigger picture, what we're trying to do at Holt is we're trying to understand the true economic returns of a business. And with NVIDIA here, the economic returns the last few years have just been incredible. So the big question is, can they sustain the levels that they're at right now? That's a big question clients are asking.
So I'm familiar, we're all familiar with return on investment, but this CFROI is relatively new. So explain this, because it's an integral part of your system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the CFROI framework has actually been around for many years.
Right.
The way I think of it is, it's a way to compare and contrast all companies around the world on a like-for-like basis. Just give you a very quick example. Think about Taiwan Semi versus NVIDIA. One capitalizes R&D and looks at all the gross plant. One does not capitalize the R&D. We put all the metrics in the world on a similar basis, CFROI, and then we value the cash flows of the companies.
So let's look at this here. Then the AI era points to CFROI reaching an all-time high. And so we've got the personal computer area, the networking area, the mobile area, the cloud area, and now we have this AI area. This lends credence to the notion that these stocks have more room to the upside.
Yeah, absolutely. So the long arc of time, and I think anybody who's ever bearish on tech has to look at this chart here. Over 50 years of data, we've seen the return on capital rise ever higher for tech. And I think, Charles, to your point now, we're at this AI cycle where returns on capital are around 17%. So the big question is, again, can it be sustained at those levels? And I think as you think about the long arc of history, it's very hard to bet against tech here.
But ironically, people were saying that here, right? Can this last? Will it last? Nah, maybe it won't. Okay, will it last? Nah, we think it's overdone. And it just keeps getting better and better and better. And it's the irony is people are more prone to bet against this long arc of history, to your point, than the momentum we've got. So let's talk about an area where really it's been stuck. The hyperscalers, will they get their money back? A lot of people are concerned there. You wrote specifically about this in a recent report.
Yeah, absolutely. So the big concern is that all this investment, what is the return on capital on this investment? So you are seeing the near-term returns on capital fall. I think what a lot of investors miss is that while returns on capital are falling, the growth is very high. You're generating more and more value creation and economic profit there on the right-hand side.
So this is what you're looking at here.
That's right.
This is what investors should be looking at.
That's right. The absolute dollar of economic profit.
And this suggests that these stocks are really undervalued here.
That's right. It suggests that the next few years, the trend remains very positive.
Okay.
7,183. That's where the S&P is right now, up 69 points. Not only session high for all the markets, but the S&P and NASDAQ are aiming and at record highs. So we will watch it moment by moment. The S&P, it needs 63 points at the close, and the NASDAQ needs something. Well, the NASDAQ is way above it. It needs 200 something, and it's up 385 points. So in the red, the Dow transports, but they've had a lot of records recently. All right, we're waiting on earnings from both Tesla and IBM. We got a mixed picture here. We've got Tesla up about 1/3%, IBM down 2% off the lows of the session. With minutes before we see these numbers, let's talk about Tesla, along with the AI-centric names like Nvidia, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon. Those names have driven more than 80% of the S&P 500 gains since 2023 due to heavy investment in the sector. That's according to Washington Crossing advisors. And recently, since the market low, March 30th, Kevin?
Yeah.
They've driven 60% of the gains. Kevin Caron is here with us. He, of course, has $11 billion in assets under management over at Washington Crossing. But tell us about that.
What we've seen is that if you took the market since 2023 and divided it into two halves, the above-average risk stocks and the below-average risk stocks, the above-average risk stocks and those stocks that are among them drove more than 80% of the returns. So the market that we've been in has been one that's loved risk, and that has really helped to sustain valuations, but it's also helped to drive earnings, because what we're seeing in the AI space is a lot of investment growth that's feeding back into profits. So it's creating a virtuous cycle that's supporting the market.
Tesla, again, we're 2 minutes away from the closing bell. Tesla needs a win here. We know that. But Tesla is also spending a lot on AI and on robotics. So what do you think? Can it set the tone if it comes in with some better numbers than expected?
Well, the market is going to be looking not only at Tesla, but beyond it. And the peculiar thing that's happening today is that investment capital expenditure is surging much faster than profits. Yeah. This is fairly unusual, and normally there's a cooling off period. So the market is expecting very fast things in terms of growth, not only from Tesla, but the other Mag 7 as well. And now it's going to be all about delivering on those promises.
You are moving beyond the Mag 7. You like names that have nothing to do with that. Procter & Gamble, Republic Services, and AbbVie. Is there a common thread here?
The common thread is that those are all what we would consider high quality, so low debt, profitable assets, and consistency over very rapid growth. And this is a very well-known cycle that we've had lower quality stocks that have led the market in the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. And we expect that this cycle is going to turn, and you're going to look at, investors are going to begin to look for predictability and stability. This has happened many times before in the past, and we expect that is going to happen again probably this year.
Money, and here's my take on what's happening with this market. All of a sudden, you're going to hear it again, YOLO. I'm not talking about Drake, right? This is Wall Street. For Wells Fargo saying, you know what, retail, they're chasing these unprofitable stocks, all these tech names. Of course, the inference there is that this market rally is higher, but it's higher because of the retail investor. I will say, to its credit, Wall Street didn't panic this time around. Remember the tariff tantrum last year? Universally, all the firms shot lower on their targets only to chase for the rest of the year. Of course, stocks took off like a rocket. They were always behind the curve back then. But I will also say very few over the last month or so have shown any true optimism. Now, retail investors, they have indeed been increasing their buys. Let's bring the other chart back with the buys because, the thing is, though, they've increased their buys. You can see here the nice little spike with the single stocks. But I got to tell you something. They're doing this even though sentiment has been cautious. But there's a whole lot more going on, right? We know there's a lot more going on. Moreover, being nimble, let's face it, being nimble and capitalizing on the fast-moving market, that's a skill set you probably have to have these days. On the topic of moving fast, this fear and greed index, wow, talk about a pendulum swing. So a month ago, we were extreme fear, a year ago, extreme fear. Now we're almost at the cusp of extreme greed. But here's the thing. The initial reaction to the Iran conflict, it was also swift, folks. I mean, check out the dumping of semiconductor stocks, right? Semis are killing it. The story didn't really change. Look at this. Everyone sold semis, and now there's a lot of panic going on, a lot of panic buying. So, yeah, retail investors, they're still, in my mind, following fundamentals. They're still doing what you're supposed to do. The experts are the ones who are sort of getting caught up in emotions. And this is the thing. Even when history is a guide, take this. This is great from Max Kittner over at HSBC. I mean, he obviously gets it. So, these major conflicts that we've had in the past, a week after, a week into them, a month into them, where has the market been? For the most part, higher. It was down in the Gulf War, and guess what? Down in the Middle East conflict. So, if anything, it looked like an anomaly, like it was oversold, like maybe it should be higher. At least that's what it was 99% of the time. So listen, I know people are saying, well, this time it's different, right? The Iran conflict, it's more severe. You think about some of these other prior geopolitical escalations, and I get it, yeah. It's a bigger global oil shock. It's the biggest global oil shock in history. But think about this. United States, we're far less dependent on Middle East oil than we were in the past. Plus, we've got other economic tailwinds, folks. It's amazing. So here's the scary part. The mavens promising harsh reactions and muted market responses and are now sort of relegated, right? They have to stay on the sidelines and watch the parade. They have to watch this market go up because their ego won't let them change their minds. I almost feel sorry for them, but I really don't. By the way, fundamental investors should have expected this spike, right? Because look at this. All right, if you believe in fundamentals and you believe that earnings are the mother's milk of rallies, this line tells you the market should be going a lot higher. Now, some will also quibble with this. They'll say, well, it's just a few companies with these outsized revisions. That's always the case. It's always a few companies, right? Then there are technical investors. If you're a technical investor, you're probably on this market for an array of reasons because there have been a lot to be bullish. Retaking key moving averages, and then it's been these thrusts, right? Several of these thrusts have been important, right? And we were reminded of that last week. We learned, look at this. This is your NASDAQ thrust. And essentially what we're seeing here is that if history is a guide, your mean return will be 28% from where we are from last week. And again, Listen, we learned from the movie The Right Stuff. The proper thrust creates something that we should share.
Right, Axe Compute, AXE, Axe Compute. It's a neo cloud AI infrastructure platform. Okay, it just signed a 3-year, $260 million deal with Nvidia to build, quote, a single tenant cluster supercomputer setup. The CEO of Axe Compute is Chris Miglino, and he joins me now. First of all, sir, what is a single tenant cluster of 2,304 Nvidia B300 GPUs? What does it do?
It's a infrastructure that AI companies or any company that's looking to leverage AI will launch. So you had, the AI rush to the data center started with all of the OpenAI, Anthropic, everybody like this. And now you're seeing a big rush with other players that want to have what they call confidential compute. They want to own their own machines. They want to have their own infrastructure. They want to have a system that nobody else is sitting on it with them. So what Axe Compute does, what AGPU does, is helps those companies get their inventory so that they can launch their own infrastructure.
So they went with you instead of hyperscalers, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, because you can do what they can't do. Is that it?
Well, our business is not focused around one individual data center. Okay. Our business is focused around going out to market and finding the space that's available for different off-takers. In our business, the people that rent the space are called off-takers. And we go out and find the space, we find the specs that are available. And as you can imagine, what's happening now inside the AI infrastructure space is that there is not enough power out there. So all of the different centers across the world are in high demand. So we will come and package the entire thing together, find the space inside the right data centers, bring the computers, bring the storage, bring the networking, package the whole thing together and deliver the cluster to the client. And right now, this seems like a big transaction for us, but I will tell you that we have billions of dollars in the pipeline for these types of transactions, and it's growing very, very fast.
Congratulations, sir! You just got a very good commercial, and we wish you the best of luck with your new involvement with Nvidia. And thanks for being on the show, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You agree? Investors, do they care about these numbers at all? Do they care about earnings, or is today more about energy storage, or autonomous driving, or AI chips, or robotics?
Look, you care because ultimately you need to see stabilization of demand. I think they've seen that in spots. If you look China, Europe, I mean, that is important in terms of the core story. But the reality, going forward, this is an AI company. It's about autonomous. It's about robo-taxis. When you start to see the city ramp, talk about Houston, Dallas, when you see another 5 come on, ultimately, what does volume production look like when you talk about from a time perspective, cybercabs, Optimus? Look, to get the incremental $1 trillion evaluation, $1.5 trillion, it's going to be in AI. It's going to be really what I view. This is much more of an AI company, disruptive tech, than a car company.
Bryn, you say that the report today will be a credibility test for a company in transition, which speaks to those themes as well. What do you need to see in terms of checking the box for that credibility test?
I think when Phil and Dan obviously set it up, we want to hear about margins, first of all. Our margin's going to be sub 17, 18 is great, sub 17 probably gets a pinch. We want to hear about CapEx. Is CapEx for cars, or is CapEx, which we haven't talked about yet, for the Terafab facility, which is going to be very exciting. And so I think where this company is in transition is that it's clearly not just a car company. This is an AI company. This is a physical AI company. With Optimus, with Cybercab. And I think that so many investors talk about, the other OEMs getting the Nvidia chips that can self-drive. The reality is that just gives them the software. Tesla has the millions and millions and billions of miles driven. So to me, we're looking for multiple things, but you want to have metrics of success. I think most people are going to focus on Optimus margins and robo-taxis from an earnings call perspective.
Dan, your $600 price target implies more than 50% upside for the stock. It's down 13% this year. What do you think really turns it around and gives it that bolster to get to that $600 price?
Yeah, look, for physical AI, the two best physical AI plays in the market today, it's Nvidia and Tesla. But it's really, right now, it's the path to actually start to see the ramp into the second half of the year. This is a very important conference call from us to outline realistically. I mean, Phil always says, with a grain of salt, what it's going to look like in terms of production. What should we actually see in terms of the cities on the road? That is extremely important. I mean, if you look, it's been slower than expected, but I think that's also been carefully, because the last thing they want to do is ultimately have some issue. So you're seeing city by city them ramping. And then it comes down to, over the next year, you're owning this for the autonomous robotics piece. And they need to prove and show what the timeline is there, as well as the stabilization in demand that you're also starting to see in terms on delivery.
Is it cities on the road, or do you think it's more about the network? Is it one car in Houston, one car in Dallas, or do you need to see more of a broader rollout at this point in time?
You need to see a broader rollout, but cities are important because ultimately that is the start of what's going to be the network, where you're going to have 30, 40, 50 cities. In my opinion, they're going to own 80% of the autonomous market in the world. But as Bryn talked about, it does all start with rolling it out, showing the physical AI play. It's been an underperformer this year, but I believe we sit here 3-6 months from now, it's actually significantly outperformed.
And Bryn, you think the stock has a ceiling of about $450 per share. I believe you sold your calls at, what was it, $420 per share, which is a nice Elon Musk number. Over what time frame do you think that ceiling exists? And do you agree with Dan here that, in a month's time, we could start to see some real traction and what that would mean for the stock?
If we see real traction, the stock will be well above 420. I think it's going to take longer. Elon and his team do really hard things, right? And so that's where technically I'm very bullish on the stock long term, but just technically the stock is in a downtrend. And so I think, 400, by the way, is also resistance, but I sold my May, they'll expire, May 21st at 420. I don't think they get called away. I think it's going to be a few more quarters, but this company has so much call premium, so I'm more than happy just to be very patient, but sell calls on my positions that I own and collect really nice premium along the way.
Yeah, look, it's great thoughts there. I would also just say, when you think about SpaceX, coming in June in terms of the IPO, it's our view too, in the next year, Tesla eventually merges with SpaceX. And this is just an important dynamic as it plays out. I think that's sort of part of the golden goose for Musk as investors start to play this broader trend.